tell me later?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
Oh,
Sorry to
okay.
interrupt, guys.
Before you ask your first question, where are you from?
Me, I'm actually from LA. Actually,
All right.
I've talked to both of you guys before. Viggo, I used to go see you at the Iguana Cafe when you'd read
Reading.
poetry.
Oh, wow. In the
Yeah,
old days,
Wow.
very old days, man.
it's like
You know,
30 years.
yeah, it's I guess I'm gonna start really quick with that. Is just I've seen you from your days of reading poetry to the film choices you've made to this incredibly personal and heartbreaking tale. Why was this the right story to tell for a directorial debut for you?
Well, the honest truth is the reason this is my first movie as a director is because this is the one I found the financing for. Uh, I mean, I've been trying to do it for 20, almost as long as those days at the Iguana Cafe, 25
Oh,
years. So I tried the first time. I've written lots of scripts, and it's difficult to get movies made, any kind of movie, but especially independent, unusual stories like Falling. And even if people gradually have become somewhat familiar with me as an actor, familiar face, it doesn't mean I have any evidence that I could direct a movie until I do it. So it's kind of catch 22 in that sense. You got to show me that you can do it before I let you do it. And I understand it took time. This particular story, I wrote it after my mother passed away, and she had had dementia, like Lance's character does in the story. My dad was starting to have it. My stepdad had had it. Many people in my family. So that was an aspect that was very personal, and I wanted to portray it more accurately than I've seen, and even in the best movies about dementia and Alzheimer's. And I think we did accomplish that. But I also wanted to explore my own memories and the idea of memory, which I think is more feelings or a feeling than it is a collection of facts. We sort of edit what we remember. It's never exactly what happened. And how can memories maybe come to our aid? How can they help us rebuild a connection that's broken between two people or groups of people? But let's try to think about a time when we didn't always fight, when we could actually listen to each other, where we respected each other enough that even if we disagree, we would actually give the other person a chance to explain themselves. And how did we lose that? And memory can help you with that. And so, communication is something that is explored in this story. And as it happens, now that the movie's coming out, next Friday, the 5th of February,
yeah,
it's much more timely than I thought it would be, because we have a serious communication problem in this country.
yeah.
And in lots of families, people just don't want to listen. They don't bother anymore. It's just easier to condemn and dismiss people that think differently or don't seem to respect you or whatever, than it is to think honestly in order to try to understand what they're talking about. Like, well, how could they see things so differently than me? It doesn't work to just live separate lives. We have to find a way to talk. And you got to listen before you talk if you want to have a relationship. I think you have to accept what's in front of you before you try to alter it or advise someone to change the way they think. You should
Yeah.
respect, at least give them a chance to show and tell you who they are first.
It's a beautiful thought, and I gotta say, Lance, this is one of the best performances you've ever given. It's phenomenal. How did you find the level of making him sympathetic, but going to the extremes that he does?
I never cared about making him sympathetic.
Hmm.
Never cared about that.
Hmm.
I use things from my past. I was going to tell Vigo about a story where there would be, my mother had 10 brothers and sisters, right? So it was a big family. It was the Depression era family. And, anyway, they would fight in the house when we were all crammed in together in a cheap house and no money. And they would fight, and there was no referee. So they would fight until they were exhausted and just burnt to the bone with all the nasty stuff they ever said to each other. The only referee was all right, look, let's have a cup of coffee. You know, and we'd find ourselves sitting around a table, drinking coffee, kind of soothing ourselves. And I was a little kid, so this was out of my hands. I couldn't get any, ear time from my family. They were so busy bitching and moaning, So anyway, all families, and that's why I drink coffee all the time. I love it. I mean, it's the only time where people would chill. God, please. Otherwise, I'm going to run away from home again. I mean, when you think about the dynamics that Viggo wrote into the story, talk about poetry. I mean, it had a wonderful language of its own, a rhythm of its own that he created. And all I could do was try to keep up with it. And then he would say something to fix me, and I'd go, don't fix me. I don't need fixing. I'm a farmer. I have horses. I do crops in the summer. It's winter right now. I should be hibernating. Leave me alone. That kind of thing. So but it was a beautiful tale, because if you didn't act it, something good was going to come out of it. Something good between those scenes with all these wonderful actors that are in it. I especially love Viggo's granddaughter, or his daughter, my granddaughter, by proxy, whatever, how, but I loved her. I mean, and it made me take a deep breath just to be around her, the little girl. And she didn't judge me, thought I was funny, so it was like a pleasure it was an oasis in the middle of a lot of traumatic stuff that keeps bubbling up, anyway. It was a great movie to do, and it's my favorite movie that I've ever done. So it's going to stay with me pretty much forever.
Well, we do have to wrap it up, it looks like, but I just got to say, as someone who's dealt with this, I applaud both of you for taking this on. It's an important film, and it's an important story, and I think people need to see it.
I just ate up all that time. Oh.
That's all right. It was an absolute joy. I mean, I just, there's a lot to be said here. Viggo, congratulations, man. This is a beautiful film.
Thank you, James. Thank you for what you said. That was great. And I hope people do get to see it and take something from it that might make it even just a tiny bit easier to reconnect with people that they've lost touch with, that they feel they can no longer get along with at all. I mean, if it helps a little bit, that's great.
Yeah. Well, people need to give you more directing work because you're fantastic. So congratulations, boys. Good night. Good afternoon. Bye, guys.
Good afternoon, buddy.
Thanks, James.
Thank you.